It did not begin with a speech from the Oval Office or a flashing red banner. It began in darkness, high over the Atlantic, with 4 B-2 Spirit bombers lifting quietly from American soil and disappearing into a flight path calculated down to the second. No warning, no spectacle, just stealth aircraft crossing oceans to strike targets buried deep beneath Iranian territory. And if you think that was just another show of force, stay with me, because what unfolded in those hours may shift the balance of power across the entire Middle East. According to the Pentagon, the bombers carried out a round-trip strike, dropping dozens of 2,000-pound bombs on underground ballistic missile facilities. Not symbolic targets, hardened complexes tied directly to Iran's strategic missile network. The B-2 is built for one purpose: penetrate heavily defended airspace, hit reinforced targets, and vanish before systems can react. Missions like this require satellite coordination, aerial refueling, electronic warfare planning, and precise intelligence. Which raises the question, what inside those bunkers justified a transcontinental stealth strike? Each bomb weighed a ton. Dozens of impacts against reinforced concrete and layered earth suggest an attempt not just to damage, but to cripple missile capability. Underground sites often house launch prep chambers, fuel vaults, command nodes. If those were hit, this was not messaging. It was degradation. Then the temperature rose. U.S. Central Command confirmed 3 American soldiers killed and 5 seriously wounded in combat involving Iran. Casualties change everything. They harden rhetoric, narrow diplomatic space, and accelerate decisions. This is no longer remote proxy fire. It is direct friction. Iranian state media responded with footage claiming a downed American drone. Whether confirmed or contested, information warfare now moves as fast as missiles. Perception shapes escalation. At sea, Washington stated an Iranian Jamaran-class corvette was struck and sinking near Chabahar in the Gulf of Oman, a sensitive corridor linked to global shipping and energy flows. Naval losses near strategic waters send powerful signals about vulnerability. Then came the most explosive claim. Iran's Revolutionary Guard announced 4 ballistic missiles launched toward the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. A carrier is not just a ship. It is a floating airbase, a national symbol. U.S. officials denied the vessel was hit, creating a collision of narratives. If missiles were launched but intercepted, that alone marks a dangerous threshold. Ballistic exchanges at sea leave almost no margin for error. Step back and connect the chain. Stealth bombers strike underground missile sites. American soldiers are killed. A drone is reportedly downed. A corvette is said to be sinking. Ballistic missiles are claimed toward a U.S. carrier. Denials follow. This is not a single headline. It is escalation in layers. Behind the scenes, radar tracks, satellite feeds, naval intercept calculations, and encrypted communications determine the next move. Underground missile facilities are not just hardware. They are command networks. If those networks were disrupted, response timing changes. That could explain the urgency in retaliation claims. It could explain why both sides are controlling information so tightly. And remember the geography. The Gulf of Oman connects to the Strait of Hormuz, through which a major share of the world's oil passes. Any naval confrontation here ripples through energy markets, shipping routes, and regional alliances. 3 American soldiers dead, 5 wounded. Sailors potentially lost. Crews on carriers at battle stations. Air defense officers tracking trajectories in seconds that feel like hours. These are not abstract moves. They are real lives inside a tightening strategic arc. So here is the question. Was this a contained exchange or the opening chapter of something larger? Did the bunker strikes achieve full penetration? Were missiles intercepted mid-flight? How close did this come to a wider regional war? If you want to track where this goes next, not just the headlines, but the sequence, this is the moment to stay engaged. Because when stealth bombers cross oceans and ballistic missiles are claimed toward carriers, we are no longer in the realm of routine tension. We are watching a threshold being tested. There is also the question of deterrence credibility. If underground missile facilities were significantly degraded, Iran may feel pressure to demonstrate retained capability. If the United States confirms a sinking corvette, it reinforces naval dominance narratives. If Iran's claim about hitting the USS Abraham Lincoln were ever substantiated, it would represent a seismic shift in regional deterrence calculations. That is why the denial from U.S. Central Command carries weight. Maintaining the perception of carrier invulnerability is central to strategic messaging. Another dimension involves regional allies and proxies. How do allied militias interpret this escalation? Do they increase rocket fire on U.S. bases? Do regional air defense systems move to higher readiness? Does maritime traffic tighten formation under escort? Each decision adds friction points. Information warfare now moves in parallel with kinetic operations. Video clips circulate within minutes. Analysts freeze frames. Debris patterns are examined. Satellite imagery is scrutinized. Every claim is dissected online by experts and amateurs alike. In such an environment, narrative dominance can shape diplomatic leverage. There is also the economic layer. Oil futures respond to missile launch reports. Insurance premiums for vessels transiting the Gulf of Oman fluctuate. Defense stocks spike or dip depending on perceived escalation. Markets interpret not just confirmed impacts, but credible threats. And beneath all of this lies the question that has not yet been answered clearly. Is this the opening phase of a broader, sustained confrontation, or a calibrated exchange designed to reset deterrence boundaries? The difference is enormous. A calibrated exchange seeks to impose costs without triggering full-scale war. A broader confrontation would involve sustained air campaigns, expanded naval engagements, cyber operations, and potentially regional coalition involvement. The fact that stealth bombers were used suggests premeditation. The fact that casualties occurred suggests intensity. The fact that ballistic missiles were reportedly launched toward a carrier suggests audacity. And the fact that official statements from both sides contradict on key points suggests controlled messaging. As the hours unfold, military assets remain in motion. Carrier strike groups do not simply hold static positions in such conditions. Air patrols increase. Electronic surveillance intensifies. Missile defense systems remain on alert. Intelligence satellites adjust orbits. Allies hold consultations. Diplomatic channels may be active even as public rhetoric remains firm. This is the kind of moment where history sometimes pivots quietly before the full scale becomes visible. The public sees fragments, a bomber mission here, a missile claim there, a sinking ship, a denial. But behind those fragments may be a larger recalibration of red lines. And as we approach the next phase of this developing situation, ask yourself, what comes next if either side feels compelled to restore deterrence credibility? More strikes on hardened infrastructure, expanded maritime operations, cyber retaliation targeting command networks, or a sudden diplomatic pause masked as de-escalation? Stay with this story because every confirmed detail shifts the equation. And if you value deep, connected analysis that looks beyond the headline, make sure you are subscribed and leave a like so you do not miss what unfolds next. And now we move into the part of this story that is even more dangerous. Because after the first wave of strikes, after the statements and denials, after the images and counterclaims, the battlefield does not freeze. It adapts. Military planners do not simply react. They anticipate the second and third order consequences. What happens after underground missile facilities are hit is not just about rubble and craters. It is about redundancy. Iran has long invested in layered missile architecture, dispersed launch platforms, mobile transporter erector launchers, tunnel networks carved into mountains, decoy installations designed to absorb precision strikes. If dozens of 2,000-pound bombs fell on one set of facilities, the immediate question inside Tehran's command rooms would be this: how much capability remains hidden? How much can be mobilized? And how quickly can it be demonstrated to restore deterrence? That calculation alone could determine whether the next 48 hours bring restraint or expansion. At the same time, inside the Pentagon and Central Command, analysts would be assessing battle damage in real time. Satellite imagery would be compared frame by frame. Thermal signatures would be analyzed. Seismic data might reveal whether deeper chambers collapsed or merely suffered surface-level destruction. The effectiveness of bunker-busting munitions against reinforced underground complexes is not a theoretical matter. It is measurable. If the strike achieved full structural compromise of critical nodes, then Washington may believe it has set back missile readiness cycles by months. If not, the pressure to conduct follow-up operations could rise. And follow-up operations mean risk multiplication. Consider the maritime dimension again, because this is where escalation can accelerate almost invisibly. A carrier strike group operates with layered defense. Destroyers equipped with advanced radar arrays, cruisers with interceptor missiles, submarines operating quietly below, electronic warfare aircraft scanning electromagnetic spectra. If ballistic missiles were launched toward USS Abraham Lincoln, even if intercepted, the act forces every ship in that formation into heightened readiness. Interceptors are finite. Reaction windows are seconds long. Radar tracking data is archived instantly for post-event analysis. And if one missile had slipped through, even if only causing minor damage, the strategic symbolism would be enormous. That is why denial and confirmation are so tightly controlled. Perception of vulnerability can shift alliances overnight. Now think about regional reactions. Israel will be watching closely, recalculating its own air defense posture. Gulf states will be assessing whether their energy infrastructure could become collateral targets. European governments will be weighing diplomatic statements against energy security concerns. China and Russia will be studying every detail, not only for political leverage, but for military insight. How did stealth aircraft penetrate? How were air defenses configured? What interception systems engaged at sea? Every engagement becomes a case study for future conflicts elsewhere in the world. There is also the cyber layer, the invisible front that rarely makes headlines during the first hours of a kinetic clash. When high-value military infrastructure is struck, cyber retaliation is almost inevitable. Command networks, logistics systems, satellite uplinks, power grids, port authorities, financial clearing systems, all of these become potential pressure points. A single coordinated cyber intrusion can disrupt mobilization timelines or distort radar feeds. And if such operations are already underway, we may not see their full effects for days. The modern battlefield is not confined to airspace and water. It extends into fiber optic cables and server farms. Meanwhile, domestic political pressure builds on both sides. In the United States, 3 soldiers killed means congressional briefings, emergency security sessions, public addresses under intense scrutiny. In Iran, footage of bombed facilities and a reported sinking naval vessel means calls for retaliation, demands for resolve, demonstrations of strength. Leadership rhetoric tightens. Each statement becomes a signal not only to the adversary, but to internal audiences. Escalation can become politically self-reinforcing. And let us talk about the strategic psychology of long-range stealth strikes. When bombers depart from American soil, cross oceans, strike hardened targets, and return without loss, it sends a message about reach and survivability. It suggests that geographic buffers offer limited protection, but such a message can cut both ways. If Iran believes that its most secure facilities are now vulnerable, it may double down on asymmetric strategies, proxy forces, maritime harassment, cyber disruption, regional missile salvos that complicate interception matrices. The battlefield could become less centralized and more distributed, making attribution and response even more complex. Another crucial element is airspace control. For B-2 bombers to execute a mission of that magnitude, suppression or evasion of air defense systems must have been meticulously planned. That implies either gaps in radar coverage, electronic countermeasures that blinded detection arrays, or routes designed to exploit terrain and timing. Each of those factors reveals something about defensive architecture, and once revealed, they rarely remain secret for long. Defense ministries worldwide will be dissecting what this operation implies about next-generation stealth and counter-stealth dynamics. On the economic front, oil markets are hypersensitive to even the perception of instability in the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz. If shipping insurers increase premiums, that cost trickles into global supply chains. If tankers reroute or slow transit due to naval tensions, energy delivery schedules shift. Even rumors can move billions of dollars in minutes. Now imagine confirmed, sustained hostilities. The ripple effect could reach far beyond the region, touching inflation rates, currency valuations, and stock markets from New York to Tokyo. And what about alliances? NATO members may quietly consult on contingency planning. Regional partners hosting U.S. bases could reassess their own exposure. Missile defense batteries in neighboring states may move to higher alert levels. Joint exercises could be accelerated or postponed. Military logistics corridors may see increased traffic. These are the background movements that rarely make headlines, but signal preparation for potential escalation. The unanswered question remains: was this a contained demonstration of capability, or the opening act of a broader campaign? If underground ballistic infrastructure was a primary objective, is there a list of secondary targets already mapped? If maritime engagement resulted in the loss of an Iranian corvette, will there be reciprocal attempts against other naval assets? If drones are being downed, will reconnaissance intensify or shift to different platforms? Every tactical move invites a strategic countermove. And in moments like this, miscalculation becomes the most dangerous variable. Radar misinterpretations, misidentified debris, communication delays, or even social media misinformation can inflame tensions. When ballistic trajectories are involved, reaction time shrinks dramatically. Decision makers must interpret data under pressure, aware that hesitation can appear as weakness, while overreaction can trigger spirals. There is also the technological dimension. Modern ballistic missile defense at sea relies on integrated networks that include satellites, early warning radars, ship-based tracking systems, and layered interceptors. If 4 missiles were indeed launched, data from that engagement will be analyzed exhaustively. Intercept timing, trajectory patterns, decoy deployment, if any, electronic interference attempts, all of it becomes part of a classified evaluation process that shapes future doctrine. This is how military evolution happens, through live testing under real stress. At the same time, Iran's missile forces are not static. They include a range of systems with varying ranges, payload capacities, and guidance technologies. If underground facilities were hit, remaining assets might be mobile, harder to detect, faster to deploy. The shift from fixed to mobile launch platforms complicates targeting and increases unpredictability. That unpredictability can become leverage. And now, as night falls again over the region, fleets reposition, aircraft refuel, intelligence officers cross-reference streams of data, and diplomats speak in carefully calibrated tones. The world watches for the next signal. Will there be another stealth sortie, another missile claim, a cyber blackout, a diplomatic overture framed as de-escalation, or something entirely unexpected that reframes everything we have seen so far? These are not distant hypotheticals. They are active possibilities unfolding in real time. If you are following this story closely, you understand that each development connects to the next, like pieces of a complex strategic puzzle. That is why your engagement matters. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe happens next? Escalation or containment? Strategic pause or sustained campaign? And if you want to continue tracking this evolving crisis with detailed breakdowns and connected analysis that goes beyond fragmented headlines, make sure you are subscribed and leave a like so you do not miss the next update. The situation is fluid, the consequences are global, and the next move could redefine the entire trajectory of this confrontation.